Welcome to Full But Not Finished. I'm your host, Stefanie Michele, and today I want to talk about sizing up. Whether we're navigating diet culture still and fighting with that and weight cycling up and down, or we're starting to let go of the micromanagement of our food, and inevitably for many people, that involves a period of weight gain, or we're just navigating life and the natural ups and downs of all the different phases of our life and all the different ways that our body changes throughout our life. Whether you're in an active process of dealing with that right now or you're not, but inevitably maybe, this episode is for you. Our culture teaches us that gaining weight and needing to get new clothes is a sign of failure. And that's really the only messaging we have around it. It's quite stigmatized. And I acknowledge that it's not just a messaging thing, it is also a felt sense of what's happening to my body. And I think that anytime our body changes, there can be a sense of disorientation. But it is obviously, we lean biased in one way more than the other. When we lose weight, that disorientation seems to carry a lot less meaning. Our culture has embedded within us a sense of like, we're not as safe when we're gaining weight. And when we have to buy clothes that reflect that reality, it makes it feel more true. It makes it feel like concrete evidence that yes, we are in fact failing. And it's associated many times with this feeling of defeat and surrender, the popular idea that we're letting ourselves go. And so I wanted to offer some ways of reframing this for yourself, because the culture is not going to give you this. We have to really be intentional about thinking about this differently, because the default is going to be to think about it through the lens of failure. And I also, at the same time, want to acknowledge that even with the reframes, we are still going to have our original codes. If you listen to last week's episode about our original codes, the original language we speak is probably, if you grew up with the media around you and with diet culture around you, that weight gain is going to mean something unsafe, dangerous, fearful, or like you've done something wrong. If that feeling rises in you when you need to size up your clothing, that's okay. That's not a deal breaker. That's normal. That's an original code. That's something that is programmed to auto-populate with this experience. And we're going to hold that truth and not assume that that means we're doing something wrong or that that's a sign that we can't think differently alongside of it. The classic case of two things are going to be true here. I want to give you that second thing because we already have the first thing covered. We already have the dysregulation and the panic sometimes and the disappointment and the shame that goes along with weight gain. And that's here, but we need something else to be true. So these 5 reframes are going to offer you a second way of sitting with this that I hope you can take with you, whether you need it now or whether you need it later. The first reframe is that we need to feel safe in our bodies. So this one's going to veer away from the meaning making for a second. And this one's going to focus more on the somatic experience of sizing up and what that can do. I always tell the story to my clients and to groups that I run of, I just remember that for so many years before I ever looked at recovery, when I was very much invested in managing my body size and trying to force a square peg into a round hole, as I like to call it, part of the reason that body image was so hard was that feeling you'd get when you'd wake up in the morning and it would be time to get dressed. And the worst part about getting dressed for me was the first layer. It was like the under layers, the underwear, the bras, right? Like the closest level of skin contact that you have with clothing, and feeling the nuances of those fluctuations. It would have some stretch in it or a tightness to it that I would feel first thing. And no matter what I wore over it, I would always have that sensation of something being tight or tighter, even if it still fit, just the tighter. And this still goes for pants and shirts as well. But it was always that first layer that I always held my breath, feeling like, is it going to be tighter today? And that was the instability and like I said, the breath holding that was so difficult. It was so unsustainable, although I did it for so many years. And I'm sure that many of you have as well. That there's this sense all the time of like, is this going to fit today? How is this going to feel on my skin? The reason why it's so difficult to feel something tight on your skin or to feel uncomfortable, or even if it's like, you know how sometimes you'll have a shirt or a pair of pants that technically still fit? I used to do this with leggings all the time because they were stretchy and I could get them on. They fit, but it didn't feel comfortable. The waistband would be digging in just a little more, or the shirt would be clinging to me in a way that didn't flow the way that it used to, even though, again, I could still get it on. And I would sometimes look in the mirror and try to cognitively rationalize that it still fit, but the felt sense of something matters. And this is going to speak not to your stories, not to your meaning making, but to your embodied sense of, are we okay or not? Discomfort is a communicator to the nervous system. So if we're feeling discomfort on the physical level, on the skin level, there's going to be a messaging to your nervous system that is, that felt sense is what I want to talk about here in this first reframe, because it's independent of the moral associations here. It's just looking at, am I receiving a message through my skin all the day long, right? It's not even about the mirror. It's about the way we feel as we're walking through our day, or turning or twisting or sitting. And it's kind of like somebody tapping you on the shoulder constantly all day long, being like, hey, 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 this doesn't fit. Hey, this doesn't fit. Or, hey, this is uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable. And it, as annoying as I know that just was, like, that is exactly what it is. It's a feeling. It's not just a thought. And while we can work with thoughts, even though that's difficult in and of itself to change a thought or to distract ourselves from a thought, when it comes to sensations, it's very difficult to move away from that. The felt sense of the body is there all the time. That's the point of sensing. It's always retrieving information and communicating that back to your brain to say, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. This is what's going on. Have you ever like put a seatbelt on that digs into your shoulder the wrong way and you just kind of need to move it? We wouldn't think twice about doing something like that because it would just simply be, I don't want something digging into my shoulder. Like, I just need to move it so that I can be more comfortable and not be like under the surface kind of always irritated by this thing that's digging into my skin. To think about it the same way. So if you've got articles of clothing that sit on your body that are constantly hitting the receptors in your skin that detect pressure, however slight, and you have receptors on your skin that detect very slight amounts of pressure, that is a sensation that's going to be continuing to come to your brain that's telling your brain that that's there. What we do with that information is a different thing, and that's a different filter we're putting it through, but you're going to be constantly getting that information. And for most of us, it's an automatic switch to that filter of, uh-oh, this is wrong, this is bad. In either case, it's going to resemble a certain amount of discomfort. And so when I think about sizing up and buying new clothes, I like to think about it through the lens of, I need to do something that's going to create an embodied sense of safety for me in ways that I don't have to think about. Because I don't know about you, but I have other things to do in my day, and I can't give my full-time 24/7 effort to helping regulate myself down from a sensation that's uncomfortable. If I had to do that all day long, I wouldn't do anything else. So to first think about sizing up as independent of meaning making from a cognitive level, and to think about it as a somatic practice of offering your body sensations that your body doesn't have to do so much work. Your nervous system doesn't have to do so much work around negotiating for you all day, and that you have to constantly reroute those sensations into something that feels manageable. The difference between wearing something that is a little bit tight and bothering you and like, digging at you a little bit versus wearing something that you don't have to think about because it's not tapping you on the shoulder all day long is night and day. And most of the time, once we actually wear clothes that are comfortable for us, the relief there, it's game changing. And when you can change the game from constantly feeling like there's something telling you that something's wrong, your body's wrong, you have more bandwidth in your energy and your thought space and your window of tolerance to actually participate in body image healing endeavors and new thought patterns and somatic work and other ways that you're trying to renegotiate your body image in more meaningful ways. The amount of brain space you can create for yourself by not having to navigate all of that for most of your day is significant. There's a lot more you can do when you've got the space to not be navigating that piece. So again, in some ways, this is an effort to regulate your nervous system and not a reflection of failure. The second reframe I want to offer here actually builds off of that, because the thing that often comes up when we decide to size up, and let's say we're thinking, okay, well, if I need to make my nervous system feel safer because I have done something wrong by gaining weight in the first place, this is where that layer of the story is going to come in. And we're going to start to tell ourselves that we have let ourselves go and that this is a reflection of great disappointment in ourselves because we caused this to happen. That is a really probably the most potent one, I would say. I like to turn that on its head, as I often do, and this is where my fierce self-advocacy and also a little bit of that anger is gonna come in handy, because when you think about it, it's like we will sit in discomfort, both emotional and physical discomfort. The physical discomfort of trying to hold on to clothes that don't really serve us anymore, or the emotional discomfort of not acknowledging to ourselves that we have gained weight and need new clothes because our culture told us. When you get down to it, it's enraging. I find that to be the most oppressive thing. And when I take a step back and think about the way that I am suffering and participating in my own suffering because of what society will think, or even just existentially, like what society has taught me that it means to size up, I feel like hell no. And to take the shame and put it on the outside. So instead of thinking of it as a defeat, thinking about it as a F you. If we can harness a little bit of self-advocacy here, just a little bit, and start working with that, we can change who controls the power here. I have had to, over the years, work my way through older pieces of clothing and replacing them and replacing them. And every time I did so in recovery, instead of thinking of it like defeat, I thought of it like I refuse. I refuse to allow myself to battle with my closet and to negotiate with clothes that don't serve me anymore as a way of offloading my sense of agency to a culture that does not have my back. When you think about it, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't want to be made to feel bad about myself. I don't want to be made to feel bad that my body, when I don't micromanage it, exists in a certain way. Do I have feelings about that and about the fact that our culture does have stories that they assign to that? Yes, of course. But when it comes to my own sense of shame and my own well-being, I don't agree. I'm upset that that's the culture I live in, but I don't agree with that anymore. I think that that's an extremely oppressive system that we live in. And so instead of taking that energy and boomeranging it back on myself, I decided to kind of turn that around and be like, while this is upsetting to me because I do live in this culture and I have to deal with that, this isn't my shame. This isn't for me. This is anger towards the culture that makes me feel this way. This is anger towards a culture that makes me assume that just because I have to change the size of clothing that I am because I'm no longer micromanaging my body, that that's some kind of failure. Screw that. Like, that became something I started to push out that way and to let that energy live out there and to push the anger outside of me so that I could actually get clothes that I needed to get and reclaim my right to my own comfort in my own body. It's my body. That is where we combine 1 and 2 here, where it's like, this is my embodied sense of safety. I don't want to have to suffer all day long because I'm trying to fit into the box that society wants me to fit into by having a number on the tag that seems more acceptable. I resent the fact that when I look at a number on the tag that I have a feeling about it. Again, to acknowledge that we do have a feeling about it, but to change the way that energy is going to go, to change the direction of that energy. I prefer to think of it like this energy that's being created in me as a reaction to these numbers pisses me off that I actually have this story in my head. I didn't do this to myself. I didn't make this on my own. This belongs out here, and I'm going to reclaim something. This is my agency I'm going to take back by doing what I need to do instead of with going along with what society wants me to believe and what society thinks that I should do to fix this. To me, this is a call to autonomy. This is a call to start defending yourself. This is a call to the opposite of self-abandonment. This is not letting yourself go. That's the story that was assigned to sizing up. Number 3, it is a practical truth that sizing up is kind of a drag in terms of the energy, time, and money that we have to put out to get new clothes. It is a burden in many ways. I personally, I don't like shopping. I don't like it for so many different reasons, but one of those reasons is just I'm not like the most fashion-y person. I don't really know how to put things together too well. It takes a lot of energy for me to figure out like what to get, how to get something that's going to fit on my particular shape because I don't have a traditional straight size. And sometimes you go to this store and you're that size, and sometimes you go to that store. So if you're buying online, you can't try it on and you got to get a couple so you can return it. It's a whole thing. You got to go look at the shipping label, and then you got to get a box, and then you got to bring it in. It's a lot. And it's no better to have to go out to the stores because it takes time out of your day. And also, every time I go to the mall, because my daughters are into that now and they like to go shopping, I'm like, oh, do people still do this anymore? And then we go shopping and I'm like, look at these mannequins. I get very upset. If you saw my post on Instagram several months ago, I had gone shopping with my daughter and there was a mannequin in the store that when I went around to the back of it, this denim skirt that was on this mannequin was a size 00 and was safety pinned because it was too big for the mannequin, meaning that the mannequins that are advertising the clothing are smaller than the very, very, very smallest size that you can get. I think this is ridiculous, and it makes me activated every time I have to go into the mall. Sometimes I go through the mall and I see the imagery in the store windows and the objectification of women that is left, right, and center. And I remember what it was like to be growing up in the 90s and going shopping in the early 2000s. And at that time, I didn't even question it. Like, I wasn't angry. I was just ashamed. I just was like, that's not me. I can't do that. I'm wrong. I mean, that was just, I think about it now when I go and I see it, I'm like, wow, I really used to internalize that. I really used to believe that that was the way my body should look. And I did not question that. It's activating. It can be really activating to go shopping. And financially stressful. You know, it's not just buying a pair of pants. Sometimes it's like I have to buy a bunch of new pairs of pants, or I have to buy several shirts, and I have to buy the jackets. And there's a lot of investment here. I don't want to minimize that. And I also believe in starting with the basics, starting with the undergarments, actually, because those are the things that sit closest to the skin and working our way to higher needs. And even just having, you know, when I recovered, I actually just pretty much lived in a couple of outfits. And they were stretchy and they had a lot of give. And mostly I had like a lot of leggings at the time. But there is something to be said of just starting somewhere and not having to revamp your entire wardrobe if you don't have the means to do that or the energy to do that. And just giving yourself that breaking the seal moment of, I have a pair of pants now that I can go to. Because when you're sitting and looking through your closet or looking in your drawers, and basically you have to keep rifling through things. This doesn't fit. This doesn't feel good. That doesn't fit. It's demoralizing. So when you can just open a drawer or open a closet and pull something out and you know it's going to fit, again, the emotional space you create, the bandwidth, mental energy that you give yourself there by not having to dedicate that to those feelings of disappointment or frustration goes a long way. But I also wanted to reframe this common sentiment that gaining weight is inconvenient for these reasons of investing time, money, and energy to a new wardrobe by saying that if you were to lose weight, would you feel the same way? Because many people don't have the same problem working in the opposite direction. If we lost weight and needed to get a new wardrobe, somehow those financial and energetic and practical considerations that we're complaining about on the moving up end seem a lot more manageable. So I just want to call to mind the bias that we bring to that. It is admittedly practically inconvenient to buy new clothes, but how much of that inconvenience is rooted in the bias we have towards buying bigger clothes? Would we feel the same if we were buying smaller clothes? I think when we can put it into that perspective, we can deconstruct what's what. We can deconstruct what's the story and what's the actual practical inconvenience. And there still will be a practical inconvenience. If we'd happily do it on the other side for ourselves, then we might want to look at the real story there. The fourth strategy that I want to bring here is something that I used a lot when I was starting to work with my body image, to stop micromanaging my food and to stop compensating for my food, which led to some weight gain. And I knew that it would. And there was a part of me that felt really nervous about accepting my body and accepting a higher size. And sometimes the way that I needed to get through that was to not think about it as, this is my new body and this is my new size and I better get used to it, because there were certain days that felt really unmanageable and overwhelming to me. In order for me to stay with myself on a day-to-day basis, which is where I needed to be to just get through this idea of, I'm not going to compensate for the things I'm eating and I'm not going to fall to diet culture. And I understand that I need to honor my mental hunger. For me to be able to do that, I couldn't at the same time hold and this is how it's going to be forever, and you better get used to it. It was a lot. It was just so much change, and it was so many overwhelming things that felt unsafe to me. And so what I would do is I reminded myself, I only need to accept this for right now. I remember that I had like a photo, I had taken a screenshot of something I'd seen on Instagram that said, accepting your body today doesn't mean you have to accept it forever. And while, yes, there's ways in which that sentiment can be problematic, it saved me. I don't know that I would have been able to continue if I didn't have that to hold on to. And I want to be realistic about that. And so one of the ways that I thought about it was, I'm going through something right now. I'm deconstructing diet culture. I am working on undoing all these years of scarcity around food, and I need to allow my body to do what it needs to do as I move through that, including weight gain. I need to be in the now, and in order for me to be in the now, I need to understand that nothing is a life sentence, and that if I want to choose something different in the future, I give myself permission and agency and bodily autonomy to do that. But right now, I know that the best thing for me is to not micromanage my food, and that might involve some weight gain, and I need to stay with that. And so these are the clothes, and this is the size that I need to be right now. Leave it at right now. Let yourself just take it moment by moment, life season by life season. This doesn't have to be a call to, and you better get used to it forever, because that's hard. To reduce it down to the present moment, which is a way that we can stay out of overwhelm. If you need to size up right now, that's the size we need to be right now. And I think about that like, if I were being transferred for my job, or if my family was transferred to a different part of the country or a different part of the world to live for a few years, and it was a radically different climate than what I come from, would I bring my clothes? Would I bring my winter jacket that I wear in New Jersey winters to a climate that receives sunshine 365 days a year? I would be wildly uncomfortable if I did that, and it would be kind of illogical. I would adjust my needs to match my environment. And so if I think about it the same way, if I think about it like, this is a season of my life and I am entering it, and I'm going to make sure that I have what I need to assimilate to my new environment, that's what I'm going to do. I don't know when I'll be back. Maybe I'll come back and I'll need my winter coat again. I don't know. But right now is what I'm focused on. And that, what do I need right now? What is my life season right now? Can I accept this for right now? I need to be comfortable right now, is what helped get me through the right now. I found a lot of value in offloading the what ifs of the future to the future. And I gave myself permission to say, you know what? I can revisit this in a while. I can revisit this in a year. If I'm really unhappy living in this climate in a year's time, I can think about other ways of doing it. And I gave myself that permission. But I couldn't give recovery a fair shake, or even body neutrality or body acceptance a fair shake, if I was constantly in resistance of it. I needed to go towards it fully. I needed to be in it fully. And for me to do that, I needed to give myself permission to be there fully. That means not bringing the past with you. It means not bringing your expectations of the future with you. It means being where you are right now. And I think that that is actually a skill that extends beyond just body acceptance and sizing up. So often we are caught in the past, or we're predicting the future, and we're neglecting ourselves in the now. And I do believe that that's a version of self-abandonment. The fifth and final reframe is that in some ways, it could be kind of fun. When we need to size up and get new clothing, by rights, we could try new styles. We could try the way that different things fit on our body. Even as my body has been changing in my 40s and my midlife, like the not even when it comes to weight gain, but just the way that proportions seem to change after a certain period of life. After I had kids, my body changed a bit. And as your proportions change, your styles just look different on you. And I actually spoke to a body and weight neutral stylist, and I interviewed her, which will be available in my Cocoon membership soon. And she talked about the impact of shape and how our bodies are shapes, and that shape is part of design. So shape does matter when it comes to how something looks and how something fits together, and that doesn't have to be an accusation, that's just a truth of the same way that colors do different things and shapes do different things too. And so there will be clothes that read a certain way on our different shapes and the way that those shapes change in a way that can be seen as neutral, and like, how do I dress my body in a way that works with certain styles that might be a better expression of myself or a different kind of way of expressing myself. So I went through this period of time where I was like, I really dress like, I don't know how to say it. Like I was so classically dressed, like mainstream. And I recently started to feel like I'm more in touch with like some boho clothing. I really like the idea of like flowy things, but not because I'm trying to escape even my body or hide my body, but just because there's something about the way that that clothing moved and the way I felt in that clothing. But there was an exploration there of what kinds of styles can I start experimenting with? If I'm going to be getting new clothes or trying new clothes on my body, how can I allow that to become more of a creative expression of who I am? Because if we're wearing clothes that feel more like us, there's an alignment that comes that is independent of how we look, quote unquote, in those clothes. It's something of a self expression and feeling able to express ourselves. So, this can really be a period of time where we're getting out of old styles that maybe we clung to just because it was familiar or it was the pattern or it was just our old way of doing things. It's what felt safest, and say, like, what is it like for me to try to look at some fashion influencers who dress in ways that really appeal to my sense of myself or really appeal to my sense of style in ways that I haven't experimented with before. I recently went away with my family this summer and I needed some types of clothing that I don't typically wear. I needed more like going out clothes, which I tend to just dress very casually in my day to day. And so I did experiment with brighter colors and rompers because I just find them so cute. I think they're so fun and they're so comfortable. And I got a whole bunch of these to go away with. And I loved it. Again, I haven't changed my entire wardrobe, but I'm folding this in. And I recently had photos taken of myself for my website, and I wore some of those outfits. And I noticed that I didn't pay as much attention or care so much or react so much to body size in those clothes. I just liked the way I looked and I liked the way I felt. And that translated to me when I looked at those photographs. Very interesting in that the same body that wearing clothes that didn't feel like me, I had more of a body image activation towards than when I wore the clothes in the same body, in the same size, that did feel like me. And I didn't have that same reaction. It was a very interesting experience for me cognitively to notice that. So to think about sizing up in some ways as an opportunity to be creative, to try new styles, to get in touch with your authentic self expression. So if you are sizing up, any of these tools we've talked about, if some of them resonate with you, that might be able to propel you towards some more empowerment some of the time. There might be other times where you do feel the old ticker tape of our cultural narratives playing in your head. One of the things that I really take with me and that get me through so many of my body image moments is this idea that I don't need to never have negative thoughts. I don't need to feel 100% regulated. And I'm even allowed to feel really, really low about my body image some of the time. Those old record players are going to come up. But if I can also start to show up for myself and add in that second layer of self talk that says, there's also this to think about. There's also this to think about. What if we reframe it like this? When I'm ready, after I have my little temper tantrum, to fold in those layers of new self talk, that's how we start to develop a new way of being with body image where two things can be true. And while one has a powerful influence in the beginning, we code in that second layer through our new versions of self talk, our new ways of thinking. They may not feel as compelling. They may not feel as automatic, but the more that we can bring them to the surface, the more that we can return to these new thoughts and give them a fair shake, the more that folds into the way that we behave and think more naturally over time. If you are viewing this on YouTube, don't forget to leave a comment below to let me know which of these ideas have helped you or if you have other ideas that you'd like to add to the pile. And if you are listening to this on a podcast audio, thank you for being here. I really have been appreciating your ratings and reviews, and I'd love to hear from you in terms of what you'd like to hear me talk about next. That's it for today. I will see you next week.